Unraveling the Path to Civil War, a journey through divisive debates and sectional tensions. In 1820, the Missouri Compromise emerged as a beacon of temporary peace in a nation divided over slavery. It meticulously balanced the number of slave and free states, staving off the inevitable conflict for a moment longer. Nat Turner's rebellion in 1831 struck fear into the heart of the South. The violent uprising of enslaved individuals heightened Southern paranoia and pushed the region into further defensive posturing over the institution of slavery. The Nullification Crisis of 1832 to 33 brought to the forefront the simmering tensions between states' rights and federal authority. This standoff, sparked by South Carolina's refusal to comply with federal tariffs, underscored the growing chasm in the Union. From 1836 to 1844, the gag rule represented Congress's attempt to silence the growing anti-slavery debate. By automatically tabling anti-slavery petitions, this rule deepened the ideological divisions between the North and the South. The Mexican-American War, spanning from 1846 to 1848, not only expanded U.S. territory, but reignited the contentious debate over the expansion of slavery into new territories, further complicating the nation's already fraught relationship with the institution. In the wake of the Mexican-American War, the Wilmot Proviso emerged as a contentious proposal aimed at prohibiting slavery in the newly acquired territories. Though it ultimately failed, it underscored the growing schism between North and South over the issue of slavery, setting the stage for further discord. The Compromise of 1850 sought to quell the burgeoning tensions through a series of measures, including the admission of California as a free state and the enactment of a stricter Fugitive Slave Act. This act, in particular, inflamed Northern sentiment against slavery by compelling citizens to participate in the recapture of escaped slaves. Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin struck at the heart of the nation in 1852, vividly illustrating the brutal realities of slavery. Its publication aroused widespread anti-slavery sentiment in the North, further deepening the nation's divisions and making the novel a lightning rod for criticism in the South. The Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854 introduced the concept of popular sovereignty, allowing settlers in those territories to decide the issue of slavery by vote. This led to a violent struggle known as Bleeding Kansas, as pro-slavery and anti-slavery forces clashed, foreshadowing the larger conflict that would engulf the nation. Bleeding Kansas became a grim preview of the Civil War, as it degenerated into a series of violent confrontations. This period underscored the inability of legislative compromises to address the moral and political quandaries posed by slavery, pulling the nation ever closer to the brink of war. In the mid-1850s, the Kansas Territory became a battleground over the issue of slavery, an event ominously dubbed Bleeding Kansas. Pro-slavery and anti-slavery settlers clashed violently, foreshadowing the imminent national conflict. This period was marked by raids, massacres, and guerrilla warfare, as both sides sought to influence whether Kansas would enter the Union as a free or slave state. The violence in Kansas was a grim preview of the Civil War, demonstrating how deeply divided the nation had become over slavery. The caning of Charles Sumner in 1856 further illustrated the deteriorating state of national politics. After delivering a fiery speech against slavery and its proponents, Sumner, a Massachusetts senator, was brutally attacked on the Senate floor by Representative Preston Brooks of South Carolina. This violent act shocked the country and symbolized the breakdown of civil discourse, underscoring the deep sectional divisions between the North and South. The Dred Scott decision in 1857 dealt another blow to the already fragile national unity. The Supreme Court ruled that African Americans, whether enslaved or free, could not be American citizens, and therefore had no right to sue in federal court. Furthermore, the court declared the Missouri Compromise unconstitutional, asserting that Congress had no authority to prohibit slavery in the territories. This decision invalidated years of compromise and efforts at balancing free and slave state interests, pushing the nation closer to conflict. In 1858, the Lincoln-Douglas debates further highlighted the national divide over slavery. Abraham Lincoln and Stephen A. Douglas, competing for an Illinois Senate seat, engaged in a series of debates that captivated the nation. Their discussions centered on the moral, legal, and economic aspects of slavery, with Lincoln opposing the spread of slavery to new territories and Douglas advocating for popular sovereignty. These debates brought the issue of slavery to the forefront of national consciousness and set the stage for the presidential election of 1860. John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry in 1859 was a radical attempt to incite a slave uprising and abolish slavery by force. Brown and his followers seized the federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry, Virginia, but were quickly subdued by local citizens and U.S. Marines. Brown's raid, although unsuccessful, heightened tensions between the North and South. It made Southerners more fearful of slave rebellions and convinced many Northerners of the inevitability of conflict. This event underscored the deep divisions within the country and the growing desperation of those seeking to end slavery. The election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860 marked a pivotal moment in American history. His victory, achieved without the support of a single Southern state, signaled a deep ideological divide that threatened the very fabric of the nation. South Carolina, viewing Lincoln's win as the final straw, seceded from the Union in December 1860. This bold move was a clear declaration of the state's refusal to be part of a country where slavery was under threat. Following South Carolina's lead, 6 more Southern states left the Union, forming the Confederate States of America by February 1861. This new nation, born out of a commitment to preserve slavery, stood in stark defiance of the Union. The situation escalated when Confederate forces attacked Fort Sumter in April 1861. This federal fort, positioned in the heart of Confederate territory, became the flashpoint that ignited the Civil War. As the conflict began, the Upper South, initially hesitant, chose sides. The fall of Fort Sumter and Lincoln's call for troops persuaded Virginia and others to join the Confederacy, further expanding the divide that would engulf the nation in war. In the crucible of conflict, the border states found themselves torn asunder by allegiance, their strategic locations and resources becoming the linchpin for both Union and Confederate designs. Their choice, or indecision, held the potential to alter the course of the war, embodying the national struggle on a microcosmic scale. With the Southern Rebellion gaining momentum, President Lincoln initiated a blockade of Southern ports in 1861, aiming to strangle the Confederacy's economy. This naval strategy sought to prevent the South from trading cotton for crucial supplies, thereby crippling their war effort and bringing the seceded states back into the Union fold. The Battle of Bull Run, erupting in July 1861, dispelled any illusions of a swift conclusion to the conflict. Marking the war's first major engagement, it underscored the ferocity and determination of both sides, setting the stage for a prolonged and bloody struggle that would test the nation's resolve. In a bold stroke aimed at redefining the conflict, President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863. This executive order declared the freedom of all enslaved people in Confederate-held territory, transforming the Civil War into a crusade for human liberty and adding moral weight to the Union cause. The Battle of Gettysburg in 1863 proved to be a watershed moment, halting the Confederacy's advance into Northern territory. This pivotal clash not only turned the tide of the war in favor of the Union, but also symbolized the high cost of the nation's internal divisions, foreshadowing the immense sacrifices required for reunion and reconciliation. In the aftermath of the pivotal Battle of Gettysburg, President Abraham Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address. His brief yet profound speech redefined the Civil War's purpose, emphasizing union, freedom, and the equality of all men. General William Tecumseh Sherman's March to the Sea marked a turning point in the Civil War, embodying the harsh strategy of total warfare. His troops cut a swath through the South, crippling Confederate resources and morale. The 13th Amendment, ratified in 1865, abolished slavery throughout the United States. This monumental legislation fulfilled the promise of freedom that had become a central aim of the Civil War, marking a new dawn for the nation. The surrender at Appomattox Courthouse by Confederate General Robert E. Lee to Union General Ulysses S. Grant effectively ended the Civil War. This momentous event signaled the restoration of the Union and the beginning of the nation's healing process. The assassination of Abraham Lincoln just days after the war's end plunged the nation into mourning. His death was a profound loss, robbing the United States of a leader capable of guiding the country through the complex process of Reconstruction.